is very powerful, that I can deal with problems now, in peace. I don't have to be that erratic and be like, oh my God, do you know what I mean? Like, I can't believe it. Like, why is it me? Like all the time.
Welcome to A Sister's Love, the podcast that helps women who are healing by having those deep conversations, giving practical advice and words of encouragement. Come on, let's talk about it.
Hello, my beautiful sisters. Welcome back to another episode of A Sister's Love podcast. On today's episode, we'll be having a guest. Her name is Vanessa, and she will be telling us about her traumatic life experience where she had been raped by a family member. She had been drugged and sex trafficked, and she also had multiple abortions. But guess what? She was able to shift her life because she is now mentoring women and helping them live their life and love themselves through her new method called Liberate Your Soul. But before we get started with all that, I would like to introduce myself to my first-time listeners. I am Rose Jones. I'm your host here at A Sister's Love podcast. And I am just a woman inspiring other women through my story because I am a survivor of domestic violence. I am currently battling PTSD and self-hate. And I am just keeping it real about the struggles that I am facing in my life. And my goal for this podcast is to help women find a safe place to heal and tell their stories. So if you're looking for a place to heal and you want to be part of this sisterhood, I would love for you to hit that subscribe button and turn on your notification. So let's get started on this week's episode. Vanessa, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Vanessa. I'm from the UK and I'm the founder of the Liberate Your Soul method. I run a company called the Divine Life Consultancy, and I teach nowadays through my amazing mentorship, through coaching programs and also short courses. And I'm out to empower all us amazing women, overcoming domestic violence, overcoming that lack of self-worth, and like you say, the PTSD, the abuse that it all comes with, the baggage that it comes with. So yeah, I'm a strong believer in the sisterhood. So I'm really, really pleased that you're having me on the show today.
Would you please go into a little detail about your backstory, about how you started this Liberate Your Soul method?
Yeah, sure. So the Liberate Your Soul method, as I'm a spiritualist, spiritual teacher, I've always been blessed to be very connected and had this strong belief that there's something bigger and better out there than just us or what we think that we are. And so when, as we go through this trauma of realizing about whether it's rape or the rape has come from domestic violence or come from when you're a child or come from any kind of that narcissism, that bullying, at some point it hits you. And for me, I didn't realize how bad things were until I got to the age of 26. I'd done all the usual things that we go through. I'd abused the alcohol. I was on my own with kids. I just had the one daughter at the time, constantly broke. And so then it kept coming round and round and round again, the deep depression, what we call PTSD, but that's not, I wasn't medically diagnosed with that, and other mental health problems. And it kept coming round and round. By the time I got to 30, which is a huge spiritual awakening for women, when I got to the age of 30, I couldn't physically function anymore. I couldn't hold a job down. I was so erratic in my behaviour, even around the kids, because none of it had been dealt with until I got into another level of fitness and until I got into another level of this awakening where I literally shut myself away. So for 2 years, I took a part-time because I was still living in the Western world. If I could have hid in the mountains of Tibet, I would have done. But through spirit and my connection with spirit guides, the Buddha, and really strong Hinduistic practices, I took a part-time vow of silence for 2 years. I was really, really strict. I earned a little bit of money teaching fitness classes. Fitness has always been a huge part of my help with mental health. But as usual, I got a bit obsessed with that, got into bodybuilding. So all of it, once I'd taken that vow of silence and I understood the power of stillness, I was able to really understand who I was. And so this is where the Liberate Your Soul method comes into it. It mixes the mediocre practices of life coaching, the healing practices that everybody talks about, you know, the EFT, the NLP, the counseling, the talking therapy. And I realized through my own journey, it was too much. And I think it is too much for us when we're really struggling. And sometimes we have to make friends with the devil. And so when I was in those stillness and silence practices, I was meeting the devil. I was hearing the voices of my abusers. I was hearing the voices of family members that had tried to crucify me, you know, and I had to learn to forgive. And it was a huge shift. Yoga was a regular practice, very, very clean eating. Detoxing was a very, very strong practice of it all. And so what I did was I amalgamated it all together and slowly got myself back into a routine, you know, got myself into a routine where I was able to use tools from a holistic method that wasn't constantly overwhelming myself, that sometimes I just had to be silent. And now I've got teenage daughters. Now they follow that practice, you know. Now they will say, I'm going to go and do some journaling, or I'm going to go and take myself off and, like, you know, cleanse my room and have some time out. And I respect that of them, and vice versa with me with that. So because, as you probably know yourself, I don't think we realise how bad and traumatic domestic violence is, with the shouting, the screaming as well, you know, like the shouting and screaming all the time. And I come from a very abusive upbringing. I come from that drama all the time. So for me, it was normal. And so when I was going through all of that, and going, like, living my life as a mum, even though my mum was quite calm, she was like a manic depressive. She'd spend days in bed, you know, because my father was abusive to her. And when you go through that process, you don't realise how deep you're in it, and you're shouting and you're screaming all the time. So to be able for me to take a step back and go into that silence, you know, is very powerful, that I can deal with problems now, you know, in peace. I don't have to be that erratic and be like, oh my God, do you know what I mean? Like, I can't believe it. Like, why is it me? Like all the time.
All the time. Like with me, I go into that because when I used to do yell and holler, I thought it was normal, because when you're raised in that environment that it was normal, you just think that's the way you communicate. Like, what? Yell at me. Like, what's up? Let's go. Like, why are you not showing me love? Like, this is how I've been shown that love is. So, like, if I'm yelling, you're not yelling at me, like, why we're not matching each other? Like, why are you not showing me that level of understanding? And you just get a lot of confused, and people just don't understand. Like my story pretty much is, I didn't know it was abuse. You know what I'm saying? Like, I thought it was what it's supposed to be. You know, a lot of people don't know, like, what, this is not normal. Like, this is not how it's supposed to be. This is all I've seen. This is all I know. So how do I move out of it? Like, when this is the only example you ever seen, like, it goes back to generations and generations and generations. My great grandmother was a foster, she was adopted by a foster person. So that's where our generation starts, and we don't know anything for that. But she started a generation of brokenness, and because she wasn't able to fix herself, so it just trickled down. It's like domestic violence, domestic violence. And everyone in my family is broken. It's like nobody could ever just align themselves with the tools and the understanding of how to shift out of it. Like, I feel like I'm the first one that's shifting. Like, it's time to break this. Like, we cannot sit in this anymore. Yeah. You're like, it's crazy.
Yeah, and I'm the same as you. And it's funny how you say that about your grandma, because my grandmother was a traveller. So her mum, my mum, and her sister, they never knew nothing about her. There's nothing, her birth is registered, but that's it. Like, there's nothing about her. There's no trace of her parents. And she was an orphan by the time she was 13. And for her, she had such a rubbish life, exactly like you say. The abuse and the messed up scenario that side of the family were in was it was awful, and it came from her. Yeah.
And not even knowing, but not intentionally. Like a lot of people think like it's not intentionally. You only can do as much as you know. So I think your silence is what opens you up. Like, how did I actually the vow of silence work? Do you actually have to be silent for 2 years, or it's just moments that you're silent, like you just sit in silence?
So it's sit in silence, literally sitting in silence with no distractions, no nothing. It takes a lot to get used to, and I did it for 8 hours a day.
Ooh. That's a lot.
Yeah. And I would, so, and now I do it on a Wednesday. So on a Wednesday at sundown now I finish because it's winter. On a Wednesday in Hinduism, Wednesday is their of fasting. And they go into silence as well. The Tibetan monks go into silence, and it's something to do with a Wednesday. It's the middle of the week. It's a very spiritual process for them. So on a Wednesday, I'll fast, and I will go into silence and let the family know that I'm going into silence. My phone's on do not disturb. If you need anyone, call your dad. Do you know what I mean? And then I'll just let them know that I'm back off. But if I don't take that practice, and also the power of stillness, the power of silence, I notice when you're getting that negative thought, when you're getting that deep, dark voice, I don't know whether it was like it for you as you're going through your healing, but especially when you are suffering with PTSD and you get over the slamming of the doors and you get over the temperamental nervousness of a loud voice, when you get over that, it's sort of reprogramming the mind that those things are okay, because not everybody does it violently. But when you're in stillness and when you're in peace, you can actually start to be aware of the fact that it is okay. It's happened. How can I move forward? And it makes you calm. It calms you down and calms this. This has been my nemesis, I would say. It's held me back so much.
Definitely. Like I have my biggest issue is I go into a mini anxiety attack. Everything to start over. I'm like, oh my God, this is piling up. And then I have to bring myself down one thing at a time. You don't have to worry about 10,000 things, and just worry about the thing that's in front of you right now that's most important. This is what's the most important thing, and all these things, just focus on that. And sometimes when you just focus on that one thing, all the rest of them just kind of fall in place. You know what I'm saying? So it's that's my biggest thing, overwhelm and anxiety. And I don't sit in silence. I kind of do a lot of isolation. So I just go in my room and this is my alone time. This is me time. Please do not enter this room at this time. This is me. I just need this time to just rethought and acknowledge my thoughts and tell myself this is not true. Thoughts come up a lot. I have imposter. I think it's imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome.
I don't think that I belong here today. I don't believe that I belong on this podcast. I don't believe that I should be telling my story because of what I've been through. So I go through that. I get nervous every time before every episode. And I just I kind of self-sabotage a lot. So just moving past it, I feel this podcast is part of my journey. Just let me know that I belong here and that my voice actually does matter. So and it
absolutely does matter. And we should be shouting out from the rooftops. I used social media for years to get off my chest what I wanted to say, and don't get me wrong, some of it doesn't help anybody. It was just literally shouting out to all the people that I hated. So, but you go back and delete it. Do you know what I mean? And time moves on, and you're like, this isn't going to do me any favors. So you delete it and delete it and delete it. But you can't, whatever woman hears this podcast today, do shout about it. You'll get a call in from God, whatever language you use, not from a religious perspective, that when your time is right, your time's right. And you even nowadays, I've been doing this for years. So nowadays you can just put it in drafts. Back in the day, you couldn't. It was out there. As soon as you press send, it was gone. And you will get, I had it. You will get family members, if you're thinking about them, vibrations, energy, frequency. If you're thinking about them and you're directing that message at them, then don't be surprised if they come back at you. Do you know what I mean? Because vibrationally, you're talking to them. So you need to go in, like you say, you need to go in that isolation. You need to go into that process. I think in today's world, it is so difficult for people, even eating a salad, I'm vegan, and eating clean, people look at you like you're weird. Like, what are you doing? You know?
That's me. Like, they'd be like, what are you eating? Like, why are you eating that? Like, I'm like, it's healthy for you. Just eat it. Just try it. They'd be like, no, it's
get
not.
over
Like,
it. Yeah.
No. Like, it's things like as a child, like there's things that you didn't like, now you eat as an adult. Like, it's just all about your palate, just changing your palate and exposing yourself to new things. And some people just very closed-minded and they just don't want to do it. Like, I didn't think I would like it either, but I tried it and I knew. And if you have a motivation behind it too, it will actually help you more too, because my motivation is like, my health is important. I actually want to live till be 100. So I want to eat, right. You have to have goals in place. If you want to reach a certain age, you want to do certain things, you have to eat healthy. That's like the foundation. If you don't take care of your temple, it will give out on you and you won't be purposeful to nobody. So your mind, your body, and your soul have to be taken care of.
Yeah, and that's what the Liberate Your Soul method is. It mixes nutrition and fitness. And when I first started it years ago, people were like, oh, I was in the fitness industry. And people were like, oh, you don't do meditation and yoga if you're a bodybuilder. You don't eat clean all the time. You just do it for 12 weeks because you're exercising, and you're like, and that's when I realized, and Spirit said to me, you know, it's the Liberate Your Soul method. If you want to fully heal, if you want to seriously get rid of all this trauma, you've got to put it through the body as well, because the body's holding it. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
when my father passed away, when my father passed away, the pain out of my hamstring, because the left side is masculine of our body and the right side is feminine, and so the left side of my body was always so messed up. Bad knees, tight hamstrings, stomach pains, always on my left side. Bad shoulder, stiff neck. As soon as he died, it was gone, just like that. No pain, no strain. That's how powerful it is. And we don't ever tap into it, you know?
Yeah, I agree, because I hold a lot of it in my neck and my head. So I get migraines and I get a lot of stiff neck and shoulder. And then I'm like, oh, I am aware of that. I'm like, oh, I'm stressing, something is wrong. I need to balance that. Like, I need to go into like isolation. I need to sit, I need to write, I need to journal. And as I do it, they're like, oh, take a Tylenol. I do not take medicine. They were like, you're the only person that don't take medicine. I said, because it's more of a mental state. Your mental and your body is connected. If you could control the mental, you could control the body. And I try to, when I feel this, I go into journal, I release it, and the pain slowly eases itself. They're like, yeah, even when I had my girls, my kids, I had C-section and I had no narcotics after that. They was like, and I'm like, I'm ready to go home. They was like, you had a C-section, ma'am. Like, you're ready to go home. Like, I'm fine. They're like, you're up and walking around after having a baby. I'm like, I'm fine. I'm ready to go home.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Best way. It's the best way, especially when you've been through that, because that's traumatic in itself, having C-sections. You know, it's not a nice experience. So being able to heal and in tune with your body, absolutely, it is key. And I love the way we're all talking about it more now, and we've got to keep pushing our messages through, because everybody needs to understand that that's key, and hopefully, you know, we can live a more greener, loving planet.
Exactly. Loving. I just want to ask you another question. Like what was actually like your breaking point that made you want to go into that silence?
So for me, it was the fact that the suicidal thoughts were just getting so bad. It was just getting to the point where I knew I had so much to offer the world, and I was putting myself out there, but nothing was happening. No clients, no business, everything I touched just turned to rubbish. That's what it felt like. And I just felt like this dark, gloomy cloud over everything, you know. And the kids didn't want to talk to me because they didn't know what was going to come out of my mouth. Was I going to be nasty? Was I just going to say it to the point? You know what I mean? And so it rubs off on your partner as well. And I didn't want my kids to go through that because, of course, coming from a mother that was a manic depressive, you know, you're constantly on tenterhooks. We all know, if you've been in domestic violence, we all know what it's like. The kids suffer with it as well. So that's why I had to change. I had to change for them. I had to change for myself. I've got goals, you know, and I really wanted to break the poverty and the destitution. I wanted to break the lack of self-worth. I mean, that kills you in itself, you know, sorry for any triggers. Yeah. But at the same time, I couldn't keep dwelling on the past all the time. Do you know what I mean? I was constantly living in the past. I had to cut it. I had to get rid of it.
No, I totally understand, because with me, that's kind of the same thing happened with me. I got pregnant with my last daughter, and I just knew, I couldn't do her the same way I did the other kids. I'm like, there's no way that I could bring another child into this situation. Like, I have to have a shift. Like, the whole pregnancy, it was a whole shift for me. Like, I had to realize that I was literally damaging or traumatizing my kids by what I was doing. Like, they were not having a pleasant experience of mom. You know what I'm saying? Like, and in this 6 years of being on my journey, my relationship with my kids has grew. And like, they're taught to me. Before, I was the helicopter mom. I was like hovering, overprotective. Like, no, I was scared. I was scared that what I've been through was going to happen to them, that I didn't prepare them good enough. So my way of preparing them is isolating them, holding them close as I can, but that was pushing them far away. So I just had to let go of the grips a little bit and just let them kind of fly and get some independence, you know. And that was like the biggest shift in my healing, was like knowing that just to instill into my kids what I have learned and what had happened to me, like pretty much telling them my story. Like, mommy been through this. This is not easy for mommy. You know what I'm saying? This is not easy for me. And just letting them into my journey. Like, I haven't always been a perfect person, but I am trying. So just bear with me. And them just knowing that I am trying my best and just letting them know that you're trying your best will change your relationship with your kids. Just open it up. They deserve to hear your story too.
Yes, they do. And I absolutely 100% back you up on that. And especially having daughters, I'm the same as you. I've got two girls. And if I did what my mother did, and which I think a lot of our parents did, you know, it's all in the family and we hide it and hide it and hide it. You know, when I got to a certain age, do you know what I mean? When I got to a certain age, I didn't even know who my mum was. I didn't even know who my father was. And I was like, who are these people, you know? And I didn't want that for the girls. And also, having teenage daughters, we do have to be very aware of, you know, who they're with, what their relationships are like, what they're up to. Here in England, we've got issues in our educational system where girls are being highly sexualized in school, and it's like, it's ridiculous. And so I do believe, absolutely, I've told my girls everything, not like sat them down, but when the time that they've needed to learn a lesson, I'm like, I've been there, I've done it, and this is what happens. You know, when I did it, this is what happened. They're like, oh, okay. And now we have this open relationship. They're growing into women. And exactly like you said earlier, we have to cut the cord. I did the same. I didn't ever want to live my life through my girls. I wanted to have this amazing business, and I wanted to have millions of pounds and have this freedom life and help other women overcome what I'd been through as well, and have my life. You know, why they had theirs. I wanted them to be independent. I wanted us all to have our thing, you know. And I started with the obsession, because of the lack of self-worth, absolutely doing that. You know, where are you? What are you doing? What time are you home for dinner? And you're like, what? and so exactly the same as you. Again, it's another lesson, isn't it? I cut it and I was like, no, it's up to you. Sort your own dinner out. You need to do your lunchbox for school tomorrow. Get a grip. Iron your school uniform. Do you know what I mean? Like, get over yourself. And I had to do the same. Yeah. It's definitely a thing, though.
Yeah, it is, because it's like you have to allow your kids to trust themselves too, because with your lack of you thinking, and you're giving them a message that you don't trust them. Like, and when that accumulates into them, like, well, my mom don't trust me, that means I shouldn't trust myself. And that's creating a whole nother cycle of unworthiness and them not being able to trust themselves and their instincts and what they should and shouldn't do. So they'll have them double questioning things that they should be doing in life. So a way of just like giving them just a little bit of independence and allow them to find themselves instead of you try to create a place for them and allow them to find their place of safety.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, is there any advice that you would like to give the listeners before we end off?
I would say that if you are in the process that you have, you've taken that step and you've left and you've escaped and you have worked through the process of now you're on your own. And I think you'd agree that the most hardest process is when you realize you're on your own. Yeah. When that happens, have faith, have faith. And this is where the most best thing happens, because you can go and join a dance class. You've got all this freedom back. And I know you might be feeling like you're still being watched and you're still being, you're still being watched, you're still being monitored, but you're not. And everything will come out eventually in the wash. But ultimately, it's the best time to start your own life. A lot of clients and customers, people that take my courses, I say to them, this is the best time. You've got your life back, Yeah. When my sister left her husband and she ended up on our doorstep for like 6 months, her, the kids, the dog, and he was abusive, I said to her, this is the best thing now. And she did. She got back into running. The kids were at nursery. And she got her life back. And you sort of, yes, you're a new version of yourself, but don't be scared of that, Go and live your life, and make new friends, listen to podcasts like this, write the emails, leave the messages, make yourself known to the world, everybody else,
Yeah. I agree. I think it's just like when you get that time, you got to have that time to rebuild self. So this is the time when you got that long time to build the foundation of who you are and what you want and what you expect in your life, so that when you do go back into the world and interact with the world, you know exactly what you're going towards. So when you don't see that in a person or in an environment, you know that you can walk away from it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can have a solid foundation for yourself. So I think that is the best advice, because building self and building self-love and self-worth is the foundation of any relationship, because you cannot go into a relationship or a friendship or anything without self, So if you don't know who self is, you're adopting somebody else, you know what I'm saying? So you got to be careful.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I would love for you to tell the listeners a little bit more about your method and how they can get in contact with you and all your social media information before we end this episode.
Absolutely, my darling. So I'm live all the time on Facebook. You can catch me with my podcast on any platform, whether it's Apple Play, whether it's Google Play, whether it's Spotify. It's the Liberate Your Soul podcast. So I'm on there. That's released every Friday. I'm live all the time. I'm on TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. And if you're interested in taking any of the courses or programs, just reach out to the social media platforms and you'll find all the latest information there.
Yeah. And I also will have it linked in the show notes below. So you can just click on there and you can find her also.
Amazing. All right, darling. Well, thank you so much. It's been brilliant.
Thank you. Well, that's it for this episode of a Sisters Love podcast. But before we end, I want to invite you to our new support group. This group is exclusive for podcast listeners. This podcast is perfect for women to come together, share experiences, and ask questions. and get access to exclusive resources. In this group, you can meet the amazing podcast guests and get those free resources, okay? And find support that you need. This is a judge-free zone. You'll never have to worry about feeling unheard or alone. To join the group, all you have to do is click the link below and join our mailing list, and then you will get access to the support group. Until next time, signing off, your sister through love, Rose Jones. Bye-bye.